Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to another 100-hour Launchpad. This is already our second Tuesday rotation and our third episode of 100-hour Launchpad. We're glad to see our regulars here coming in. Before we get started, again, as I greet everyone a good afternoon, I would like to invite you again for a brief moment of silence to honor our frontliners. All right, and on that note, we always begin by reminding ourselves that as much as we have our frontliners out there fighting the medical side of this pandemic war for us, we ourselves have our own battles to fight. And so here we are today. Our particular fight has to do with helping business teams and business leaders in particular with the process and the methodologies of launching business solutions very quickly. In our parlance, 100 hours or less. So today is going to be another exciting session. You know, I always have fun, if we can call it that, with these sessions. The last session we have, which is what we do every Thursdays, is a deeper dive. It's a 2-hour session where we dive into case studies, no? We will do the same, somewhat lighter version today. And to get us started, we have my colleague, partner in the 100-hour Launchpad. Let's welcome Miguel Aranaz. Miguel?
Hi, Andre. Thank you. It's good to be back. Okay, so we're going to have a 1-hour session today. So let's just pretty much just cut to the chase, and we're going to go into the application. So I'm going to be sharing the screen. Okay, do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so just to give some context, the project title here is a revenue streams for the new normal. We basically want to see how can we use this tool to come up with new business solutions given the new normal that we're all in right now. So we've invited a bunch of collaborators over here to join in this. Okay, I'm going to skip into stop 3 right now. So as you can see, when it comes to the 100 hours app, we will always have a solo workout, a peer exchange, and iterated response. So it's a constant cadence that we follow as we do this. So, well, basically, I guess what we're going to do for today is we're going to run through a few stops, and we'll do this live basically. So as a group, based on collaborators, we can do the solo workout. Then we'll do a peer exchange as well, and then probably get to a iterated response or not. But anyways, hopefully we get to hit maybe around 3 or 4 stops. Are you okay with that, Andre?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay, so the first stop, or stop 3 over here, is zero in on the target stakeholder. So I need you guys to understand, within the context of revenue streams for the new normal, okay, so who would be your target stakeholder that could benefit from the project? I just want to check, has everyone signed into the app already?
Well, we have guests here who.
Yes, we have some guests that.
Right, but for those who have.
Yes, for those who have.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're actually gonna time it. All right. So we'll give you 3 minutes to answer stop 3, the solo workout. All right. When you're done, make sure that you click save. Okay, so by clicking save, it goes into the database of all the responses. Okay. So describe the target stakeholder who will benefit from our project. And the second question is, how have we encountered them in meaningful ways, and why do we care about solving their problems? All right. Of course, just I just click the tag over here for the third question. Okay, so with that, let me just give me a second. Is the timer ready?
Yes, ready.
All right, so 3 minutes to do the solo workout. For those that have access to the application, feel free to do it. All right, we'll give you 3 minutes. Time
Well,
starts now.
for those who don't, you feel free to write it down somewhere, and you can copy and
Yes.
paste it onto the chat link.
Yes, definitely. Then we can make that part of the peer exchange as well. Okay, 3 minutes starts now. Okay. All right, time's up. Okay. Does everyone see my screen?
Go ahead, Miguel.
All right. So once you click save, you get led to the peer exchange page. Okay. And so right now we're looking at the different stakeholders who will benefit from our project. So I'll scroll a bit just to look at the different answers. I won't read through everything. If you catch anything, well, you should be seeing some on your screen. If there's anything in particular that you want to share, or like something that you might find interesting. Okay. Make sure you press save so that it goes to the next page.
Well, in my case, Miguel, I could not find the. I was logged into my 100 hour account. I could not find the project.
Okay.
It was not showing up. So I mean, I just typed my. I mean, let's not fuss with the administrative side of this. Let's just get
Yeah.
why don't we get started? Right now, the page is about. We have somebody who's blowing wind into the.
Oh yeah, there. Mm-hmm.
Okay, better. So yeah. Do you want to get started?
Yep. Okay. So let's see. Let me just refresh this. Okay. So we have team leaders in human resource groups. Dandy over here, daily wage earners who don't have any revenue streams right now but might have other skills. So Andre, we can probably have some people like explain why I
Sure.
define these stakeholders important. So let me just call you out. Let's start off with Dandy.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Dandy.
So my understanding is that, well, for me, these daily wage earners really are the ones most affected. Kasi they most probably they have other skills, but they're not just able to utilize it, or maybe they don't even realize it right now. But probably some people have great use of it right now. So yun yung sa akin, parang for these daily wage earners to have other opportunities beyond what they used to do.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to chime in on that?
I think for practical purposes, one of the ways in which we want to add parameters to this project and to the inputs that are coming in from everybody is to consider this within the realistic addressable parameters of your organization. So because the project parameters have to do with generating, do we have the title, Miguel? Generating new revenue streams.
Yes.
Or new business lines that derive revenues in the new normal. These opportunities and these stakeholders should be addressable by your organization or your team, given their capabilities, no, and resources. So without weighing in, because I don't know where Dandy is coming from necessarily, but this is the perspective that she needs to weigh this opportunity on, whether it will be a legitimate revenue generator for her organization. Because the perspective here is, in an hour or so, can we generate ideas that can be birthed in 100 hours or less, where if we birth them, they would generate revenue streams for our organizations. Okay, so just wanted to throw that in. Anybody else?
Let me just scroll down a bit. Okay, Carmina.
Hi,
Hello.
I answered business leaders and startup founders who are struggling with coming up with solutions to the problems that they are having because of this pandemic. So I guess right now they are still trying to survive and trying to figure out what should they do. Should they pivot their business or should they try to push their businesses pa? So yun yung sagot.
Okay.
So, Carmina, is this addressable by your organization? This
Yeah.
okay. Yes, more
Okay.
people.
All right.
I see some patterns here, Miguel.
Mhm. Okay.
Business leaders,
Mhm.
business leaders, a lot of them referencing what's going on right now.
Mhm.
Eileen, founders and entrepreneurs who identified or can see opportunities born out of the new normal.
Mhm.
Georges, angkas and grab delivery drivers. So maybe we can address this to Georges. So Georges,
Mhm.
is this stakeholder issue addressable by your organization?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Sir, tingin ko, sa situation kasi ngayon, like that, sa pagkakaintindi ko rin, sila rin yung mga most affected during this time. So, alam natin, this year, marami sila ngayon. Sobrang dami. Kumbaga, lumobo yung population ng mga drivers na to, which is daily wage earners. So, dito lang sila kumukuha ng kita nila para ipakain sa pamilya nila.
Understood. Georges,
Yes.
the question is your organization able to help the angkas and grab delivery drivers?
Yes. Actually, may mga maiisip kami na strategy on how sila kikita. Siguro, likewise sa situation natin ngayon, during the lockdown, naisip namin na why kung gamitin na lang yung each driver sa kanilang community para pagsilbihan yung mga tao sa kanilang komunidad. So
Okay.
during the lockdown,
Hyper-local, as it's called.
yes, sir. So
Let's keep it at that first. We want to keep the exchange just at the current stop first, no?
copy,
Mhm.
copy, sir.
We can develop this thought further in the next stop.
Copy. Thank you.
What else are we seeing?
Um,
Okay, we have a couple of blanks here.
mhm.
All right. So I think that if we can scroll up, we see a lot of stakeholders relating to business leaders, management teams, CEOs, team leaders, management committees, team leaders in human resource, and well, why don't you take the last? Both of us also put in. So if I were to chime in, I said the same thing, and then I'll have you have the last say. So in my case, the stakeholders I chose are business leaders who must lead in the new normal. So especially in the context when the market reopens and they need to restart their companies. So it would be very interesting for me, and of course, in the context of my organization, this is something we can really look into and see about generating revenue lines.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, mine is I did a quick edit, so it's just business leaders who don't have the faintest clue on what to do given the new reality they're faced with.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah. So I just wanna. Okay, so we have a response here. Okay. Well, yeah. So in my case, it's really just about it's all about business leaders. In terms of the organization, that's really who we can, I guess, easily impact as well.
Yeah.
I mean, given the time frame we're doing this, as much as we may be able to impact other stakeholders, we kind of have to stick to where we have easier access to, at least at this point.
Yeah. So besides the content that we're now exchanging, What I'd like to point out is something that has to do with process, which has to do with the tool. No, so as you notice, when you go from solo workout where it's just you and your box, and in this case, working with your teams, what you want to do is put a little bit of time constraint. No, sometimes we have this idea that if we take 2 more days, 3 more days, 3 more weeks, 3 more months, we'll come up with better ideas. In the 100-hour Launchpad, which underlying the Launchpad are methodologies we've been using year-round, no? To great success, launching new products, new solutions very quickly. We take the opposite extreme, wherein we look at this process, so the solo workout component of each top, and we say, in many cases, we talk about minutes. We don't talk about hours. We talk about minutes, and we say, okay, there's 6 people involved in this team. In this project, we're going to give you 15 minutes. Think about it yourself, and then we do the peer exchange. So what's nice about this tool is that in the digital world, you are able to, Miguel, do you mind doing the screencasting again? We are able to compare in real time the fruits of our solo workouts, so that as I'm doing my solo workout, I can glance through what Miguel is doing, what Gerald is doing, what Dandy is doing, and so evolve my thoughts. So it's quick iteration in real time without even having spoken to one or the other just yet. So you see that, for example, in the exchange between Eileen and Miguel. Eileen reacted to Miguel's comments, and in this case, it's not just a normal commentary. It's people building on each other's thoughts. Now Miguel might build on Eileen's comment, right, and iterate his own thoughts. So that by the time you do, Miguel, if you could scroll down the bottom of the screen, where it says peer exchange, plenary exchange, right? The other side of this coin of peer exchange is actually a plenary exchange where you get everybody in the team together to now discuss. So verbal discussions add another dimension altogether to the method and the discipline, no? Where the exchanges can be more real time. But as you can see, the prior 2 steps of solo workout and then of peer exchange done on paper in rapid real-time sequence creates an environment where the plenary exchange, whether it's done via Skype, via Zoom, or via Google Meets, the way we're doing right now, can already build on thoughts that are already running and colliding with each other in a good way. Miguel, do you have anything to add there?
Well, yeah, I guess, just to build on what you said, the idea of being able to learn from others, this early in the process has proven to really, not only make you work faster, but even you do come up with more innovative, impactful ideas that way. So, the showing your idea, well, not even your ideas, just showing your responses to people very early on in the process is key in being more innovative.
And I guess, Miguel, what we want to say is this is not learning in the traditional boxed-in sense of learning, right? I may not learn anything in the traditional notion of learning from what Miguel wrote, but because I read it, it triggers something in my own thoughts. Now, I wouldn't call that classical learning, but that is still the impact and the effect and the dynamic that we want to trigger in these peer exchanges. No?
Exactly.
It's the exchange per se, whether I learn something or not. The fact that I saw his 3 or 4 other answers to the same question that I'm answering triggers my brain to move from where I originally was further. No, so that's the dynamic that 100 Hours Launchpad is really trying to foster. So that when we use it for our own practical purposes, we really want to stick to the dynamics of the tool and let the dynamics, such as in this case, solo workout, and then peer exchange, and then plenary exchange, to follow these steps, because they will really lead you to a more processed state where ideas are richer and they're much more vetted. So shall we move to the next stop?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, the next stop. Well, Sorry, I'll just move on to the iterated response, but we won't fill it in. I just
Yeah.
have a little lag in my internet.
So while that is, yes.
There. So this is the iterated response. After you have a plenary exchange, you go here and see, okay, how exactly have you iterated your idea? So, or your other responses. So, sorry. Okay, so let's spend again. So another 3 minutes to answer the solo workout for stop 4, which is to zero in on a target problem. So may I invite those that are in the app to please go to it. Okay, so this one, this talks about shifting. It's about focusing on which problems you should actually be solving. All right. So let's give you 3 minutes to fill this in.
Just a point of emphasis. So we're doing these pain points for the target stakeholder. Bear in mind that we're for purposes of this demo, we are not using the app in its full practical context. Now, what do I mean by that? If we were a real team using this app together, we would have filled in the iterated response,
Yes.
which means that from stop 3 to stop 4, where we currently are, we would have agreed on a consensus stakeholder. And it is this consensus stakeholder that we would now be doing key pain points for. So in this case, because it's just a demo, you need to go back to your target stakeholder that you had identified, and you now have to zero in on the pain points there.
Yes. Okay.
So we have 3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes. All right, time's up. Okay, so the screen is up. So again, just to give some context, at this point, you would have answered because you were already focused on a specific target stakeholder in mind. Okay, so let me just refresh this again. Okay. All right, so let's start reading a few. Let's go back to Mina. All right. You want to share your answer over here?
Yeah, my answer is primarily focused on communicating to your employees, to your people.
Mhm.
What are your next plans? Because currently I've talked to a lot of friends, and one of their main concerns is that their leaders are having a hard time to communicate what are the plans, what are the business plans,
Mhm.
and a lot of them are vague. Some of them are just given in Viber or via email. So I was thinking na if they could create something na magiging maayos yung pag-communicate and reduce the anxiety of the people if how they will handle that communicate. So yun yung sa akin.
Sorry, what was that last part? It got a little fuzzy.
Yung last part was how would these leaders create something na parang communication plan talaga on how they would cascade it to their people na hindi sila naguguluhan.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
So what I would just comment here, I'm familiar with the same problem. No? So in other words, amongst the plethora of so many competing problems, pressures, and priorities that business leaders have to juggle, no, and not knowing because nobody's been through a time like this, which one to prioritize, which one's going to be number one, which one's not going to be number two, no. Among all those, communications is one of the key issues. What I would say though, Carmina, is this is my great big hunch. No, you can't communicate what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
underlying the lack of communication is probably confusion. So if we are to zero in on the pain that has to do with communications, in a lot of these cases, in these times, we have to also then we can't ignore that the underlying pain to that is they themselves are confused as to what to do. So at this point, it's not because I don't have access to the app. I'm going to read my inputs via chat. No, it's in the
Okay.
chat column. Just because it builds up on this precise point that I was commenting to Mina, which is, so if I'm a business leader, my pain point goes something like this: how do I restart my company? Where do I start? Do I dive right into operations, sales, marketing, all the usual stuff to run my business? Especially since cash and financials are now much tighter, given the lockdown. We haven't been operating for 30 days, 60 days. So the financial pressures are immense. Do I start there? Do I try to get sales right away? Or do I have to go back to more foundational elements? Like I need to refocus my people. Maybe, I mean, who and when I'm talking about my people, who do I start with? Do I start with the leaders? What about them? Do I look at their hard skills for how they work in a new normal like this? Do I look at their soft skills? Do I look at reinvigorating their sense of purpose, their sense of commitment, their courage? So there are so many competing priorities, and one of the pains for business leaders is, before they can even communicate, is what's my priority. Right? Before I communicate, I need to have a clear roadmap that sequences the priorities, and then I can tell my people, okay, this is what we're gonna do: 1, 2, 3, 4. Right? So that's my sense of it. Let's look at what others have said.
Sure.
We have Mitch
So
Atala.
Mitch, yeah. So, Mitch, you wanna expound on this?
Yung actually po, same lang din kami ng pinanggagalingan ni Miss Mina.
Mhm.
Ang sagot ko po kasi is yung sa factory workers, but more on ako po, focus po ako sa workforce, hindi sa leaders.
I see. Okay. So you were answering for a different stakeholder in this case,
Okay.
Yes po.
the workforce. Okay.
And
Fair enough.
check the others.
So we're going to try to build on, since there seems to be a consensus amongst this group around business leaders, we're going to pick up threads that have to do with business leaders, okay?
Okay.
Grace.
What I wrote there is actually parallel to what Andre Yap has said. To me, these are the team leaders of human resource group who have tens and thousands and hundreds of people under them. These are the workforce, that are now confused and focused. And so how do they what are their needs as to how to regroup their teams and boost employee morale at this point? So I think kaparehas lang what Andre has said kasi different business units have different requirements. Sales, marketing, graphic designers. These are still human beings who have probably similar needs and different needs as well. So they really have to strategize right now as to what to do and how to move things forward as things progress at this time.
So I just want to say, building on what Grax said, because Grax basically answered a question. I would think the pivotal question, if I were one of these business leaders, which is where do I start? Mm-hmm. And while you can make legitimate arguments that the head of sales should start with, let's get our sales going. The head of marketing should say, let's get our marketing going. The head of operations should, you know what I'm saying? All of them have competing, but at the end of the day, the foundational element that if I were a true leader is foundational to all these business disciplines is that we're still dealing with human beings. Mm-hmm. Human beings who in large part have been traumatized, like human beings have not been traumatized in history. So I can't just restart my operations assuming that they're ready to get restarted. No, it's probably the universal need, the foundational need. And therefore the foundational pain. After all, this stop is about the main pain points. No, has to be how do I restart these people as human beings, mm-hmm. not just as marketers, not just as salespeople, but as human beings. And one would think that it's probably something they should be doing right now, not when business is about to restart. Mm-hmm. So. Does anybody, building on this thread, and again, keeping in mind that our objective is to drive towards being able to launch new revenue streams, does anybody have anything to add that building on this thread adds something new? A pain point that has to do with business leaders in this new normal that we might have...
Yeah, let me scroll really quick, but feel free to add, anyone.
I have something. Oh, sorry. I have something. Kasi I think another pain point for business leaders being stuck is, I guess they're stuck for a reason, which is I read about this in one of my research. Having some leaders kasi, well, a lot of leaders are having a hard time grasping the situation because having an intellectual understanding to them isn't really the same as internalizing the reality. It's like they don't have that training ground, like they haven't been in this kind of situation before to understand what it is exactly that they're supposed to do.
So you know what? Something is emerging here where not to not to piss off Miguel by jumping into shortcuts in his lined up stops, no? But one can start envisioning solutions where I think this is a good time to go to the next stop, that the Delta statement from two, no? Where from points of confusion, you could actually give them a step-by-step roadmap for how to restart.
Mm-hmm.
Diba?
So let me
yeah. So shall we move on to the next step?
Okay. Let me just. All right, we're here.
So we are now at stop 5.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would add, Miguel, because we're being fully transparent here. No, one of the let me come out in the open and say this. No, not that we were ever trying to hide this. One of the things we're doing here in 100R Launchpad, in laying us ourselves bare to you users every Tuesday and Thursday, is this is something that we ourselves launched fairly quickly. No, supposed to be in 3 days. It took us 5 days. We're now probably on the 10th day of using this. So there's still a lot of kinks. So one thing I would say right now, as we're navigating this as users, Miguel, is probably the number 5, zero in on vision impact. That should be not so faint. It's a bit. We should kind of remind people as they jump into each layer that okay, this is what this is all about, right? That's a bit faint. Anyway, back to regular programming. So what's the stop all about, Miguel?
So this is all about vision of impact. So this is something we use in Ignite, which is basically delta statement. What type of change do you want to happen? All right. It's not about expressing a solution, but really, I guess what changes in the state would you want to happen from this? So it pretty much acts as a problem statement also to some extent.
But it's very clear. It's your vision of impact expressed as a from statement to statement. If we've been listening to each other, it's fairly clear there is a consensus thread that we've been talking about, where we're converging on the same from statement, right? Basically, leaders are confused. They don't know where to start because there's so many competing priorities. So from that to, shall we give ourselves
3 minutes again?
3 minutes? Okay.
Yeah. So we'll all use the same from, right, at this stage.
Yes. Can we try that as an exercise? Let's use the same from, more or less. It's the confusion of having so many priorities competing, pressures competing. Two, okay, now it's up to you to.
Yes.
I don't think we need 3 minutes for this. It's a bit more straightforward. Let's challenge ourselves to 1 minute and a half.
All right, 1 minute and a half.
Okay.
All right.
Game.
Okay, time's up. Well, not yet, sorry. Okay. Time's up. So let's start looking at a few first. Okay, Eileen.
Hi. So mine is from a state of confusion born out of different priorities arising from the crisis to a more focused vision of one, what needs to happen, two, why it has to happen, how it will happen. I actually edited this and I added who will be involved and by when.
Okay, let me load it up. There we go.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Let's look at a few more. Jet Paulo Silva.
Mine is to become a master of handling the current situation, meaning having to have this plan at hand on how to handle the current situation. Number two is having a steady income revenue for the company. Like, I mean, parang nag-earn pa rin yung company at the same time. And number three, having a focused mindset, not just for the leaders, but for everyone inside the organization.
Okay, thank you. Sarah?
So what I wrote there is from being disorganized in managing their respective teams that are having problems with the revenue stream to being well managing leaders who can address the revenue concerns of their teams. So medyo iba yung yung naging atake ko here.
Okay. You want to chime in on anything, Andre?
Well, for me, I wrote, again, just to amplify on the front statement. It's a state of confusion that comes from never having been in this situation before.
Yes.
Not just themselves, but nobody has. No. Two, and then there's so many competing pressures. No. Two, a step-by-step handbook for where and how to restart. For example, start with core foundational element, people and teams. Then move on to skills. Then work out targets and KPIs. All of them aligning with the new normal. So it is regardless of what persuasion or step-by-step you have, what I'm saying is that instead of leaving it to them to figure it all out and stay confused for 10 more days, is hand them that toolkit that will clarify for them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And maybe if they don't agree with it, they can, at least it provides them a framework by which to tweak and iterate instead of, again, start from a blank slate.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
That's a great point. Maybe we can look at a couple more. Gerald?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. So my from to statement is from leaders being confused with the new normal to everyone in the organization loving and embracing the setup, delivering more impact than they used to.
So one of the things that, again, because we want to be, the purpose of this session is to really get us acquainted how to use a tool like this. So I will critique Gerald or Ihenes. Hopefully you'll take this as constructive criticism. If we are zeroing in on the target stakeholder as leaders, for example, you stated very clearly from leaders being confused with the new normal, then the two statement has to adhere to the leaders themselves again, right? You switch from the leaders to now everyone in the organization loving and embracing the setup. Do you understand what I'm saying? We have to be zeroed in on the target stakeholder, and when we're talking about the pains, stop number 4, we're talking about the target stakeholder. When we're talking about the from to statement, it has to do with the target stakeholder, right?
And that's a very important point, actually, because you need to, it has to be clear to you who you're solving for.
Yes.
So if it's not consistent, if you even things like this where the language, you may be referring to all the leaders, but it's a little confusing in this case. But having this clear grasp of who your stakeholders are allows you to actually solve the problem even better and faster.
There's this saying, no? And I adhere very much to this saying, especially in rapid MVP versions like this, where you have to get enough things right for enough people to love you, so you can go on. No? Better to create a solution that, let's say, 10 people are in love with, deeply in love with, than a solution that 100 or 1,000 people are very mediocre and lukewarm about. And how you get to the latter scenario of people being lukewarm about what you did is because from the get-go, you were not focused on the stakeholder. You were kind of like one moment talking about leaders, the next moment talking about organization in general. So the reason why you can output a solution that 10 people will be deeply, madly, truly in love with is because from beginning to end, you were dead set on them. You were looking at them, you were testing on them, you were iterating on them. You were in love with them, and they're gonna be in love with you back. Does this make sense?
Yes, it does. I mean, there's a very practical way also to look at this. Something I used to do with the teams that I worked with, with the CX UX teams I'd work with, I would put actual photos of these stakeholders in the workplace and things like that, just so that it's always clear to them as they're in their workstation and they're looking around, and they're constantly like reminded, who am I actually trying to solve for? I mean, what am I trying to build?
I love this. I don't think, Miguel, that it is a minor, trivial, nice to have.
Oh no, it's not, definitely.
I would actually put it in as a concrete pro tip, maybe, or even a field here, right?
Yes.
Somewhere in these stuffs, like get a photo or an image of a real person who represents your stakeholder, and pin it somewhere. Pin it as the centerfold of your project. I myself do. I mean, I don't do pictures now, but I always, when I'm writing something, for example, I always have a specific person in mind. Even though I'm writing it for, let's say, if I'm writing it for CEOs in general, I'll have XYZ CEO in mind, as if I were writing only to them, right? So this notion of visualizing down to the picture of a person who represents your stakeholder is an excellent tool. Keep it real. Keep it real. Okay. Anybody else who wants to add something that really adds something to what we're talking about?
I'm actually learning a lot from doing this. I have just edited mine from your previous tip. So, because my stakeholder are team leaders inside HR, so they're a group of people taking care of other people in different business units, right? So my vision of impact is from them taking care of other business units inside the organization to team leaders in HR acting and uniting as one with other team leaders within the organization. So does this make sense now? Did I write it correctly, or?
Could you elaborate? I feel like there's a gem in what you're saying, but I'm not quite grasping it. Max, could you elaborate the key difference between the delta statements?
Yeah, okay, because yung from is really, okay, since I'm not part of HR, I'll just wait for what HR would tell me. I'm not gonna think of ways on how to up my game now that everyone's in chaos, right? Two, why don't, if I'm a leader, or for example in marketing, and I'm a leader and I know that this is also my responsibility, it's not only human resources responsibility, but it's a shared responsibility that I also should stand up for. So to me, that's my vision of impact, wherein team leaders from different business units are working as one with HR.
Okay, so you see the impact and the importance, the value add of writing it out, because writing it out, whether it's in English, Tagalog, or Slovakian, forces you to be very clear. You just contradicted yourself, Grax. You said team leaders who are not in HR, right, being proactive, but you wrote team leaders in HR, right? So which one is it, right?
So
On HR leaders, such as what you wrote here, but what you said is different. You're saying, if I'm not an HR leader, I will still team up and be proactive with other leaders, and so on and so forth, right? So anyway, we don't want to get stuck on that, but the point here is using this tool to be very crystal clear about your stakeholder as you shepherd them from stop to stop to stop. It's like they're in the journey with you. And that's why we begin with people. The first stop is people. Who am I going to take in this journey with, right? And you bring them along. So at this point, it's 3:28. So we have 2 more minutes left. What I would like to say, Miguel, I don't know about you, but from a very practical standpoint, as CEO of a company that is focused on this stakeholder, business leaders who have to restart, I have a very clear mind as to a new product which will create revenue streams for a new normal. I intend to get it done. I don't know about you. Did you come up with some ideas?
Well, actually, this tool we made will help us actually. I mean, will help leaders in that sense, not to, not to really, not to harp on this and the fact, but creating something that's step by step, that's clear, that allows them to go from a sense of confusion to, something with more clarity. I think this 100 hours tool, I guess, solves that.
So where do I book an appointment with you, Miguel, so I can? I think though for the problem statements that we started zeroing in on, the solution that we would be working on will look something like this, in that it's step by step. But it's probably not going to be about this topic, because this topic is, I would think, 1 or 2 layers removed from the more foundational layers that a leader would have to deal with if they were restarting their business. Because as you and I know, these are tools that have to do, 100H in particular, has to do with GX, customer centricity, and X, right? Yeah. So more foundational to that. In other words, before they start using this tool to bang out solutions in 100 hours or less, I think they need to take care that their human beings are solid, are together, are no longer in various states of disarray, trauma, or, and that they are focused on a future that they believe in and stuff like that. So there are very human things that need to be done before they start banging out projects under 100 hours Launchpad. Okay, so on that note, it is exactly 3:30 in the afternoon. I would like to, I'm Andre Yap again, would like to thank all of you for joining us, inviting you for a super session this Thursday. It'll be a very different 100 hours Launchpad, in that we are, as you can see on your screen, there you go. We could freeze it there. We are inviting the CEO, Chairman and CEO of Concepcion Industrial Corporation, Jojo Concepcion. He is 3rd generation. It's a 60-year-old company. And we're going to use this toolkit, the 100-hour Launchpad, to work with Jojo and his team, numbers in the thousands, to challenge ourselves. What breakthrough business solutions can we launch together in 100 hours or less? So we will see that in the context of a 60-year-old 3rd generation company whose products are number 1 whose brands and products are number one in millions of Filipino households. So what can they do with 100-hour Launchpad? On that note, I want to say thank you and see you on Thursday, Miguel.
Thank you also, and great to have all of you here. See you on Thursday.